Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another video on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum and I'm here today at the Rock Island Auction House taking a look at some of the guns that they're going to be selling in their upcoming December of 2017 premiere auction. And today we get to take a look at one that has a lot of myths surrounding it. This is a US model of 1903 Springfield rifle stripped for air service. And yeah, there are a couple different ideas that people will typically come up with when you ask about this rifle. And usually this is, well, these were used in aircraft before they had machine guns, because you had this extended magazine so that you could get a lot of shots off without having to deal with stripper clips from the cockpit of a flying aircraft. Well, unfortunately, this is not at all the case. As we know from documentation, these were actually not developed until 1918, and by that point, there were plenty of machine guns in aircraft, and this would have been a completely useless weapon for shooting at another airplane. What this was, however, was an aircraft survival rifle. So on the possibility that you would be shot down and crash in German territory, well, the pilot would want to have some sort of weapon for self-defense, and that is what these air service Springfields were actually intended for. So Springfield Armory developed this in early 1918. The prototypes were delivered in late April, and the rifles were actually shipped to France on June 25th, 1918. They made a total of 910. Of those, 908 were actually shipped over to France. And what they did, basically, was, well, all of these modifications make sense for an aircraft survival rifle. So obviously the main one is they put a 25-round fixed box magazine on the rifle. You can't take this off, or rather, you can take it off, but it's not an interchangeable box magazine. This is simply an extension of the 5-round mag that was originally in the rifle. Now, these magazines were manufactured for infantry use as well, although they never seem to have gotten any real field use with the US military. And because they were available, they made a perfect addition to this air service rifle. The reason for this is that an aircraft pilot would not be wearing a cartridge belt, so he wouldn't have a bunch of extra .30-06 ammunition on him. Instead, all the ammunition that he was going to have had to be contained on the rifle, and that's why they put this extended magazine on. They cut the wood forend and stock down. Even by 1918, any weight reduction you could get in an aircraft was going to be valuable. So this isn't very much weight out here that they got rid of, but every little bit helps. There are no sling swivels on the rifle because, of course, a pilot isn't going to be carrying the rifle on a sling, and a sling would just be liable to get tangled and stuck in the aircraft. So those are gone. And the rear sight has been modified as well. They took away all of the adjustment, and it's a fixed 100-yard notch sight. So we'll take a closer look at that in a moment. But for a pilot as a survival rifle, you're not going to be making any sort of really long shots. You're much more interested in staying hidden than going out there and trying to snipe Germans like Rambo. One of the things that can make these rifles a bit difficult to identify is that they don't have any special air service marking. As you can see here, the markings on the receiver are totally standard for a 1903 Springfield. Now, we do know that the confirmed known real examples of these guns are typically in the 856 to 862,000 serial number range. They don't constitute a special serial number range of their own. The Springfield Armory simply took rifles off of the production line as they were ready to produce them. So it's not a continuous serial number range. The barrel dates on these are typically early 1918, so this is a May of 1918 barrel, which fits. And then, if one is able to take a close look at the rifle, the most distinctive element of it is the rear sight. As you can see, the main leaf of the rear sight has been substantially truncated. This has been fixed in place with a screw, and this is set to just a simple 100-yard fixed range, and we have a U-shaped notch there. It is pretty much just as bad of a rear sight as the standard Springfield has, just without the adjustability. That typical very narrow front sight and very small rear notch. It is still adjustable for windage using the adjustment knob there, but you have no range options. One other distinctive element is actually the front band. So the stock has been cut down just ahead of the front band. The band would normally be attached by a spring-loaded retaining catch so that it could be removed for disassembly. In this case, they replaced the the retaining catch with just a simple screw, which you can see right there. And what makes these a little bit distinctive, this is something to look for on these rifles, is because they were manufactured new at Springfield, they weren't converted from complete existing rifles, although they were using complete factory production line receivers and barrel assemblies. But the stock has no cutout for the spring retaining catch that would hold a normal front band in place, because these stocks were put into air service production before they were inletted for those bits. The same detail applies to the back end of the stock, where there is no inletting for a sling swivel anywhere, because, again, these were put into service for these rifles before sling swivel cuts would have been made. The magazine fits in, simply replaces the original floor plate, so you can take it out by pushing in there and removing this whole box. If we look down from the top of the action, you can see that blued follower there. As with the original follower, it does lock the bolt open when empty, and this simply holds 25 rounds in there instead of the original 5. That sounds great until you realize that as an air crewman, that 25 rounds becomes your entire ammunition supply. These stripped for air service Springfields never actually did see combat. At the end of the war, November, there were still 680 of those original 908 guns in depots, in a main storage depot in France. The remainder may have been distributed to airfields, but they were never actually put into combat use. So they went into storage in the US after the war, as with so much other war material that was left over. And again, as with so much other leftover war material, by the mid-1920s, they were ordered to be destroyed or converted back into standard pattern 1903 Springfield rifles. Because the guts of the rifle, the bolt and the receiver assembly and the barrel, are all standard, it wouldn't be that difficult to convert one of these back into a regular infantry rifle. And so that's what happened to them. You know, they only made 910 in the first place. Very few of them survived that basically decommissioning process in the 1920s. So it's extremely cool to have one here to take a look at. This one happens to have some excellent provenance to it. It came out of the personal collection of Bruce Canfield, who is a noted author on American firearms of World War I and World War II. So this isn't necessarily that difficult of a rifle to fake if someone really put their mind to it. So it's nice to have the provenance on this one. At any rate, if you'd like to have it yourself, it is, of course, coming up for sale at Rock Island, so take a look at the description text below the video. You'll find a link to their catalog page on this, and that has all of their pictures, their description, their price estimate. I believe they also have a copy of Canfield's American Rifleman article on this rifle, and you can take a look at all of that and place a bid on it here live at the auction or over the phone or through their website. Thanks for watching.